Let's pull up Jay Kliger and Destiny Spurlock. Destiny is, man, she's a drag racer. Speaking of motorcycle racing, and she races for Northern Tool. How cool is that? Northern Tool and Equipment. And Jay, he owns SMEC, which is the Supermoto East Coast Series. And they also have, Jay, you have a one-off championship, right? It's the North American Supermoto Championship, if I have that correct.
That is absolutely correct.
Right on, right on. I want to talk about branding, and we're going to jump right in. Destiny, I want to start with you because you race for a very big brand that's very well known in racing. What is it they're looking for from branding? What does
Oh,
Northern Tool want? Why do they sponsor racing?
well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you everybody for attending the summit. This is super exciting. But oh gosh, so we can go down the list of all of the supporters and partners that I have, but to specifically hone in on Northern Tool. So they're really big. They're a really big company. Like some people may or may not know them, but if you know like your the oh my God, I can't even think of the other tool company right now. It starts with the H, Harbor Freight. But like they're, that type of company. But Northern Tool, they're really great. They have a lot of tools and compressors, all types of things that us as racers needs, right? And they're at a very affordable price. But not only that, they're not a cheap brand. They're very, very, very strong materials. If there's something that's wrong with it, you can bring it back into the store. But Northern Tool, they were watching me for about, I think she said about a year and a half. I had no clue.
Oh, wow.
So she found me when I was in SEMA and she's like, "Hey, Destiny." I'm like, "Hey." She's like, "So I've been watching your stuff for over a year and a half now, and I love what you're doing, and I think that you would be a great fit for us." I'm like, "Really?" She's like,
Nice.
"Yeah." So I
Nice.
guess I was doing something right. I don't really know, but I'm very happy that they're on board with me. They just came on board in January of this year. They also do a lot with youth, as far as getting. They go to it's their trades program. So basically, they go to a lot of schools that have trade programs and they donate tools to help the kids do what they want, what they need to do, for their trade. So Northern Tool
Nice.
is,
So
yeah,
it
those
sounds
are
like
my.
they're looking for spokespeople who have integrity, who have a following of people who believe them, who, they're quality tools, quality products. So it sounds like the brand ambassadors, yourself, who represent Northern Tool, have to sort of maintain that image,
Yeah,
quality, professional, trustworthy. That's not
definitely.
easy sometimes when you're a motorcycle racer.
It well for me it is because not only am I a racer, I am very big on youth because I'm not going to be here forever and I want to pass on the knowledge of what I've learned over these 13 plus years. So, yeah, it works.
Nice. All right. Well, let's stay on the youth topic then. Howell, let's pull you up because you're the team owner of Eleanor Hugh Racing, and you have a 9-year-old who races flat track. Uh,
That's correct. And
how is branding youth different from branding an adult, non-youth, when it comes to motorcycle racing?
because it has to be even more authentic. Like I can be authentic, but I can work to make myself to be authentic. A 9-year-old, our young youth racer is just going to say what they're going to say, right? So it's real important to look at their personality and talk with them about what's important to them in racing besides racing,
Mhm.
and then figure out what those values and what that branding is going to be before you approach any kind of major sponsor.
But that's important
Um,
because it's not, it's hard to identify values with a 9-year-old. So it's a matter of watching that 9-year-old in action. And I'm assuming when youth racing is at the forefront, it has more to do with the family than just the rider herself.
it does. Values come from the household,
Mhm.
and so it's going to depend a lot on how involved you are with your child at home. I've made mistakes along the way because I started flat tracking when I was 37 years old and I didn't know anything, and with greenhorn, and I brought my daughter into it. And um, we had a couple of bad experiences at races because we were both trying to race and not enough time, and it takes sacrifice. And so I put my racing to the side so that I can focus on her racing. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with branding, but talking with her, talking about her values and seeing what's important at the track, I realized that there needs to be more youth. And so our branding has turned in. We're talking with her about what to do because she had some other personal things she could talk about, but she didn't necessarily want to. But she's really into telling other people about what she does and how good it makes her feel about it. So her branding really right now it is youth activation, getting other kids out there.
Getting
More
other kids
kids
out
are
there.
out there. She's having fun. Not a problem in motocross, but it is a problem across other disciplines of motorcycle racing that we're not getting those kids because motocross and supercross are everywhere, right?
Yeah, they do a great job of promoting that. It's true.
Everywhere. And unless you want to pay for Moto America's package to watch it, you're not going to see it. MotoGP, cool. But as a kid, I can see how that looks really intimidating. And at the moment, she doesn't have any interest, even though there's a really great little park track by us.
Is she going to be a professional racer when she grows up? Will this be her primary
That's
profession?
what
Do you think?
she
Is that what she wants to
said.
do, or she wants to be a doctor?
That's what she says. She wants to be a pro. But we'll see. She's 9 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of things can change, and you have to be okay with that. But you also, like this weekend, she was pretty worn out on the last day because we're in South Texas, hot, right?
Yeah.
Very humid. And, so I kind of we had to sit down and have a conversation about branding and making sure that you're displaying your sponsors' products in a happy and joyful way. Because I couldn't get a smile out because she was just worn out, and I was trying to do it. So we sat down and we talked about, okay, we get to do this, but we get to do this because people help us. And when people help us by giving us money or discounts, then it becomes a little bit like a job. You have responsibilities to those who help you.
Yeah, and then you're helping them as well. You're paying it back and reciprocating. I could see that.
Exactly.
So
Now,
let me go to Jay real quick. Jay, since you run the Supermoto East Coast Series, it's a 5-race series, and I think you said, if I remember right, I think you told me you have 10 different classes. Are those
Yes,
classes
that's right.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, continue.
I want to talk about branding of the different classes. And do you have any youth classes?
Absolutely, we have a youth class, and we do brand our classes. I mean, for the pro classes, we brand them as like SMEC 1, which is top tier pro level classes. We have SMEC 2, which is our next level amateur. SMEC 3 is our novice beginner. And then we have a SMEC 5, which is vet. So they're all branded, each have their own logo. And then for the youth, it's our SMEC Futures class.
What kind of advice do you have for riders on the call who don't know yet what their personal brand should be and they want to find sponsors? The purpose of the summit is to help riders get sponsored and trying to align a personal brand with the brand of a sponsor. Do you wait to find a sponsor who has a certain character and you try to act out that character, or do you just be yourself and let the sponsors naturally find you? What's the trick to getting an alignment between your personal brand and a sponsor's brand?
Well, I think it's important to be true to yourself, know who you are. If there are sponsors that you mesh with and that suit you, be yourself and approach those sponsors to see if you can get support.
And then is that what you're advising to your drivers right now and teams? Does your series help your drivers and the teams in your series find sponsors?
So we do. We actually what we try to help racers with is, again, their image. In our pits, we have, grassroots racers who just show up with what they have and they that's their pit presence. We have other racers who they have the team gear, they have the presence, they're presenting themselves as an official team. Those, any racer who wants to improve on their appearance and presence, we absolutely will help them out. If they have the look and they ask us, we can turn our cameras to them a little bit, get them a little bit more exposure to help them get their message out to their sponsors as well. Any racer, if they want to start developing their program, they can come right up to us and we'll help them in any way we can. If that means, hey, I have this new sponsor, I'm really looking to do something with them, can you guys help me do a small little video package for showing me using their product, or just showing me riding with their logos? We absolutely will get our video guy out there and let him know what they need, like what they're looking for.
Excellent. The reason I asked that is because for those racers on the call, you can work with your series promoter and the sanctioning body in order to create value for sponsors. You're not all by yourself when you're out on the track or in between races. That promoter wants you to be sponsored, and they want more sponsors, and they want more eyeballs on the event. So you can work with your promoters and the series to try to create value for yourself and for your sponsors. And Jay here just said how to do it. Just come up to him and say, hey, this is what I need. Destiny.
Right.
Destiny, do you work with some of the series? Do you work with your series in creating value for sponsors? And I want to go, you have a lot of different sponsors. How do you keep the sort of the branding among all the sponsors consistent, or do they work together?
They pretty much, I would say, all work together. I would definitely want to say for me, I've always been a person that regardless of if they come to me or not, I have to represent that brand in a way that meshes with me. I'm not a person that's going to say, oh, they're giving me all this money, but they don't align with my brand and who I am as a person. I will never do that. There are people that do, but that's just not my thing. So I work, all of my sponsors, they're all like this. They all know one another. I sometimes do cross promos for them. So, I mean, nice. It all works for me. It works together. It didn't always used to be this way, but thankfully my group that I have, it works. So
how do you find your sponsors? Maybe is that a secret we don't want to share?
Oh, no. A lot of my sponsors honestly came to me. I've been very blessed for that. But there have been times where I go on to, social media. Nowadays, it's so much easier. You can go to Instagram and send a DM. Most of the time, they will respond back. And if not that, then you can go to LinkedIn and find out who's who, get their contact information, call them, send them emails. I like to call them first because I like to speak with them. But if I don't get an answer, then I'll always send an email. I'll follow up within a week if I don't hear anything. And, just be persistent, but not annoying at the same time. But, and then if you don't get anything on a call or email, go to DM on socials.
DM on social is increasing. I mean, people are using it more and more, and I'm hearing that. And for some love it, some sponsorship directors love it, and some hate it. But it's a great way to get a hold of people now.
I love it. I wish it was like this when I was first getting into racing, because you didn't know who was the owner. You didn't know who the marketing person was. It's just like, okay, they're going to be at the PRI show. Let me go find them. Let me talk to them that way. But now it's like easy peasy, but it's also super saturated because just like you're sending a DM, you have 100 other people behind you. So it's like you're crossing your fingers and hoping that they see your message.
I was interviewing Robert Wilson from Boxo USA a few days ago on the podcast, Meet the Sponsors podcast, and he said at one point, this might have been off the camera, maybe it was part of what we recorded, I can't remember, that he sometimes gets 50 to 70 direct messages a day, depending on if they do a big promotion and people see it. Can you imagine trying to filter through 70 DMs in a day? That's not easy to do.
No, thank you. I want no parts of that.
Right. Hal, let's go back to you. Let's go back to the Supercross and motocross. What can other racing series learn from the way Supercross and motocross promotes its drivers and teams, racers and teams, and
it's what kids see, and it's what kids want to be, because it's the thing that's on TV, and they have They just have a really good promotional package between those two series. We used to have real good personal, packages. Was like Flat Track. Think back to the 80s and 90s. It was huge. It was nothing for 100 experts, which would be the pros now, to show up and for a race to be whittled down to 32. Right. That doesn't happen these days because costs have gone up exceptionally, especially if you're running at the twins level in Flat Track. And so what I'm doing is I took my daughter to motocross camp this week, but then we sat down with the instructor and talked about her flat track and talked about that she went to American Super Camp, which is a flat track oriented, but is open to all riders to teach them how to ride and loose and feel comfortable with your rear end. Loose. And he was excited about that because that is something that's hard for young motocrossers to understand. But coming from a peer explaining it to him, he thought he could make some headway with that. So that,
so you're cross-training, essentially cross-training with other disciplines. And I'm assuming that not only cross-training physically and through the sport, but you're also learning how brands are activating at different events and
Yes.
new marketing from effective marketing or series that do get marketed.
And I'm marketing to them in that I see that they have every month a big race, and that's how they run the series down here. And I asked them, well, how much would it take for us to come out here and bring a couple of kids and do just a demo so that they can see that there's other things that they can do with it. If you don't know that there's hill climbing out there, you're never going to even try it. And I think that Jay would agree with that, because Supermoto got big and then it shrunk. And it went from being on like the X Games to not. And so how do you figure out, well, why did that change and how can I make it better in my area? Because in the end, that's going to help me with her branding and her ability to reach sponsors. And so, we're looking for those kind of opportunities. We're also looking for opportunities to activate. That's huge in the youth market.
Let's talk about the difference between activating on screen versus at the track. What are some effective track activations?
Activating has a lot to do with talking to parents. Because when I was young, and I wanted to start motocrossing and that kind of stuff, my parents said, heck no, that is too dangerous. Well, technology's come a long way. So she wears like a Leot soft shell underneath. And then she also, it works for Flat Track. She has an air vest that as soon as she comes off that motorcycle, it blows up in less than a second, covering her entire cervical and all the way down to her entire lumbar and across the chest. So safety equipment has come a long way. Problem is that, even a 50cc nowadays is $6,000. So there's a big barrier to jump in if you don't come from a motorcycle family. Well, how do you fix that? Well, I got some old bikes. Bring them with me. Hey, you're interested in just going out there? You don't even have to race, but you want to go around the circle and mommy, daddy are okay and sign the waiver? There you go. Go have some fun. And that's
you're activating by allowing other youth to practice on your used bikes. And maybe not practice, but just learn and sit on it.
Get an experience on it. And their parents see that they can ride and do that. And then you can talk about what we can do you don't need to go buy a new bike for a brand new rider.
Excellent.
How you may not be able to work on it, but you got me as a source. Yeah. And I can give you 15 other people in different areas that would be willing to help you at a drop of a hat.
I like that. I like that. Well, let's go to Jay then. Jay, with at your series, what are some effective ways that you activate at the SMEC series?
Well, for our sponsors, when they come on board, we have banner logo placement, flags, things like that to help get them the, exposure and visibility to all the racers and all of the spectators, that they can see that these are the companies that are supporting this sport that we're passionate about and that we're enjoying with.
So it's pretty standard. I think what most racing series do is they allow the on-track visibility, the signage, the livery, and you're showing them involvement. And then it shows up in the media that's then created, whether it's social media from individuals and spectators saying, hey, look, I went to the races, check it out. Logo might be
Yep,
picked up in
that's-
some of their social, and even the paid for media when you're promoting the event.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. And then Destiny, how do you activate for your sponsors? What are some cool activations you do?
Just as you said, all of the liveries and all the images and logos and all that on all of my pit stuff, I do that. And then I ask all of my sponsors if they have like little tchotchkes that I can put out on my table along with my merchandise. So that way when people come by, they don't have to buy a shirt, one of my shirts or something like that. They can just pick up, a little tchotchke. But also, once I get to NHRA, I'm working with one of my sponsors called Pure Fuel, and they're a sports drink, hydration drink. And I want them to be able to come out and give out free samples and things like that. My goal for all of my sponsors, I want all of them to have a huge setup, tent, everything, like bring some things that people can see, touch, feel. But of course, that's not always, how it works. But for me, that's the type of things that I like, because I want them to come out to the track. I want them to enjoy themselves. And two, I want to expose their company to other people that may not know about them. And of course I do my videos when I'm there, like, hey, drinking my drink, or, have my Northern Tool and Equipment banner back there, giving the little shout out without a shout out. But when I'm at the track and I'm off the track, I try to push my companies that support me as much as possible.
So it sounds like you're an extension of their marketing arm at events where they're not going, or if they do go, you provide hospitality where they can take out some of their VIPs and maybe some of their customers.
Exactly. Always. Because like you said, these are not only sponsors, they're partnerships, they're friends, they become your family. It's an extension of you. And I want them to know that I am very thankful for them. And I just want them to have a good time and know I'm here.
And you also have a very classy, clean logo. So you're not just branding your sponsors, you're branding yourself.
Yes. Yes, I am. I've been here, like I said, for 13 years, and the things that I've learned along the way, it's a lot. So I've changed my logos about 4 different times, but I think I finally have the one. And I also wanted my logo to be clean. So if one of my sponsors wanted to partner together to do a shirt that we can give out to people, it looks very tasteful and not, like crazy. So
that's cool. Hal, I'm going to go to you because I saw your logo guidelines for Eleanor Pugh Racing, and that was pretty cool. It's the first time I saw that from a race team where you actually, you deal with a sponsor and they have logo guidelines and vendor guidelines and all these guidelines, and these books show you how to place their logo, what Pantone colors, what size. You have that same thing for your daughter.
Yes, and that was not something I would have came to without Megan Myers would come on later, and she was the first one that I really started listening and doing her courses. And in that, she talked about using a professional designer and how important that is. And then you need to be loyal to that design. You don't need to be changing. And I also think, now I want to add this in sponsorship. You got to be loyal to your sponsors. Rental is helping us out this year. But if I drop over to another brand next year, and then the next year we use a different brand, and then we find a brand that we really want us to sponsor us, they're going to be like, well, you're not going to do anything for us because right now you're just a brand company. And so I think that's really important. I think it's also important to understand where you are in sponsorships physically. So if you're in a small town, it's easy to get a lot of local sponsors who are willing to give you money, not necessarily products, to support you along the way. Because
keyword being local.
Everybody knows everybody. Now, I live in the Metro San Antonio area, so I have to go about it in a different way because I did try that, and the feedback that I constantly got was, what good is that going to do for me if you're up in the Panhandle racing and I'm only here? So I've had to rethink about, okay, Texas is big, we race in Texas. Who are the regional people that have five or more dealerships across Texas, whether it's talking trailers, motorcycles, or whatever, that you can now go to and say, you know, present what you'd like to do for sponsorship, and then say, by the way, we race within a certain amount of at every one of your dealerships. And so it is good for all your dealerships. And
So I like that. And you're in San Antonio, and I know VP Racing Fuels is in San Antonio. So I encourage you to
Yeah.
reach out to them.
I would love to reach out to them.
We have 3 minutes left and 3 panelists. So Hal, since you're on the screen, why don't you start first? Any last words of advice on personal branding and activations for racers and riders on the call? And then we'll
You
go to
gotta be
Jay and
authentic.
close with Destiny.
You gotta be authentic. There's no fake in it. These guys who make the decisions, especially on the high level, have been doing it for a long time. And you need to make sure that their values are the same, not only your values, but your other brand's values. You can't get out, and this is out there, just because everybody knows, Hobby Lobby is a very Christian company. If you had them as a sponsor, you wouldn't go to Voodoo Ranger, the beer company, and then ask them for a sponsorship, because you're going to lose one or the other at the end of the year. And so it's important to look at the values of not only yours, but to match it up to sponsor to sponsor.
Awesome.
Now I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Hal. Thank you so much. Jay, last words of advice.
I echo being authentic, finding the sponsors who are going to, you're going to relate with. And if you don't know how to approach, talk to ask somebody for help. If it's your promoter, your race series promoter like myself, happy to help, anybody put those connections together and try to help elevate your program.
So consistency, partnerships, and authenticity. I'm hearing that over and over and over now. Destiny, how about yourself? Last words of advice, someone who wants to follow in your footsteps, do strong branding and activations for sponsors.
It was exactly what Jay and Al said. At the top of my notes, you can't see them, but it says be yourself. That was my number one thing because, and I'll be quick. When I first started coming into racing, I was so focused on trying to be what I thought the people wanted me to be. And then as I got older, of course, because I was young, I was 17. But then as I got older, I'm like, you know what? If I'm myself and they like me, then that's great. So let me just be myself. At the end of the day, what's for you is for you, and you will match with who you're supposed to be with. So don't try to downplay yourself, or of course you have to be polished and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, be true to yourself, because you can never go wrong with that.
Nice. Thank you so much, Destiny. Thank you, all 3 of you.